Why gun-free zones are still the most dangerous places in America. That's what we're going to talk about today, folks, so let's get started. Quick question, if signs could stop violence, why do so many high-profile attacks still happen in places labeled gun-free or sensitive? Today we're going to look at what the law says, what the courts are fighting over after Bruen, and what criminals actually do when they see a soft target. Here's a spoiler alert, they exploit it. I'm Steve Mazzagatti, retired New Jersey State Trooper, former paramedic, firearms instructor, and author of Defend Confidently. I've stood on both sides. I respect tradition and the rule of law, but I also care about what works when seconds count. What sensitive places means after Bruen. And when I say Bruen, I'm talking about NYSERPA versus Bruen, the landmark U.S. Supreme Court decision in June of 2022. Let's define terms. In June of 2022, the U.S. Supreme Court in NYSERPA versus Bruen said governments must justify gun regulations using the nation's text, history, and tradition. The court recognized a narrow set of historical, quote, sensitive places. Think courts, legislative chambers, polling places, but warned that you can't declare an entire island, like Manhattan, like New York did, a city, or broad swaths of public life off limits just by slapping on a label. After Bruen, several states responded by dramatically expanding sensitive places, in other words, gun-free zones, adding public transit, parks, houses of worship, entertainment venues, most private property by default, and more. That triggered the next wave of litigation. Different courts have blocked some lists, allowed others, and many provisions are still in flux. The bottom line for us, the map of where you can and can't carry is changing, and it varies state by state. As a practical note to our viewers, you should always check current law in your state and any injunctions or appeals. Your carry app or Attorney General's site or state police website may not update instantly, so you should verify before you leave the driveway. Now, laws aside, what do violent offenders actually exploit? Number one, predictability. Schools, commuter hubs, and posted venues run on schedules. Predictable crowds mean predictable opportunity. Number two, access control on paper, not in practice. A sign on glass isn't the same as screening at doors, trained staff, or deterrent presence. Number three, delayed intervention. In many of these places, armed response is minutes away, not seconds. Attackers choose windows where resistance is least likely. Let's walk through a few high-profile categories where carry is restricted and what typically happens. K through 12 schools and campuses. We've seen tragic attacks at elementary and high schools where lawful carry is prohibited and security is thin or delayed. Attackers know law-abiding adults aren't armed. Even when there's a school officer, response can be minutes or affected by policy failures. These are the classic sensitive places, but they're also predictable targets. I often say that we need to start protecting our schools like we do our banks. We provide armed guards at banks to protect our money, but we don't always do that at our schools. They should be fortified with armed and trained police to protect our kids. Movie theaters and malls with no gun policies. Some theaters and malls post no firearms policies. That doesn't create screening, it creates compliance by the law-abiding. Offenders either ignore the sign or plan around it. We've seen attacks in large crowded venues where initial resistance is near zero. One well-known theater attack occurred at a posted no guns chain. The presence of a sign didn't deter the offender. Nightlife and alcohol-serving venues. In many states, carry is restricted in bars or the bar area. Packed spaces, loud audio, low light, perfect chaos. Response relies on staff and police. These factors make these places attractive to offenders and notoriously difficult to secure. Houses of worship. Policies vary. Some states or congregations restrict carry. Others form volunteer safety teams or hire security. The difference in outcomes often comes down to prepared people on site. Where a trained armed defender was present, stopping times are measured in seconds, not minutes. Public transit. Some states label buses and trains as sensitive. For commuters, that means daily disarmament and predictable patterns. For offenders, it means concentrated crowds with limited exits. Security cameras help after the fact. They're not immediate defense. At a Texas church in 2019, a volunteer safety team member stopped a shooter within seconds. Real lives saved by on-site defense. In multiple school attacks, offenders exploited unarmed populations and delayed response, choosing times and places with minimal immediate resistance. Several theater and mall incidents occurred at posted no-guns properties, where the only people who complied were the people you want armed, the law-abiding. Here's the blunt truth. Signs are not security. A sensitive place label becomes meaningful only when it's matched with physical security, trained people, rapid communication, and a plan. Where those elements exist, attackers either fail fast or choose a different target. Where they don't, the label gives a false sense of safety. Now picture your world, your kid's school, your commute, your congregation, your Friday night out. Ask, who is actually responsible for the first 60 seconds? Is there a plan? Are adults safe? Are exits known? If you carry, what's your legal plan for moving between restricted and permitted spaces? For storage, for retrieval, and staying within the law. After NYSERPA versus Bruen, states are still testing the limits of sensitive places. Courts are sorting it out. Meanwhile, offenders test reality every day. Don't outsource your safety to a decal on a door. If you want practical, lawful ways to navigate this, how to plan routes, store responsibly in your vehicle, and maintain awareness, subscribe for the next video. And if you want deeper training, consider grabbing my book, Defend Confidently, and reviewing our online course. I'll put links in the description. You can also visit shopmtgsafety.com. Folks, this is education only. It's not legal advice. You should verify your local laws before you carry. Thanks for watching and stay safe.